What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about cranks, crank arms, crank spindles, crank bolts, everything about cranks. And I'm talking about cranks. I'm making this video today because recently I got a pair of stln Mob V4 cranks, and I love these cranks. I am so glad that I upgraded from the one-piece cranks that I had right there. So yeah, let's get right into the video. Okay, so to start out this video, we're going to go over the parts that we need for installing our crankset. And the first part that you're going to see in our kit that I'm going to talk about are these two little bolts that go on the outside. They're kind of like really large washers that go on the outside of the crank spindle right there. One of them is kind of a more smooth cap that is almost like a quarter pipe. And the next one is a cap with an indentation. And that one is the one that goes on the drive side with the indentation going out towards the chain. You're going to have a few sets of washers. My kit only came with two, and I really only need two. And these are for when you're lining up this with the sprocket, you want to line them up nice and even with the back sprocket right here so the chain can go on evenly. Then we're going to have these bolts right here that screw in to the side of the spindle when the cranks are on. And then, last part, and the biggest part, we have the crank arms. The crank arms are everything that brings it all together. These are the big part of the operation. And I have put the pedals on already, and I know these are mountain biking pedals, but the other ones that I had on my one-piece crank set did not fit, and so I just didn't feel like spending the money to buy new pedals. So these were the only ones that I had that fit. So, with now knowing all the parts, we are going to get right into building. Okay, so to start out building the crankset, you're going to need a crank spindle, and I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the video, but your kit with your crank arms will come with this spindle. Spindles come in either 48 spline or 8 spline, and I have an 8 spline right now. I probably should have a 48 spline, and the splines are the little indentations that go around here. The 48 spline obviously has many more, so it's a lot stronger, but these work just as well. And you have to hammer that in to where the bearings are, and generally in the bearing cups down here there's a little spacer. You don't need that spacer, but it really helps keep everything nice and sturdy in. So once you pound that right through the hole, sometimes they can be a little bit looser or you need a hammer to put them in, but you got that in. And then you're going to want to take the two washers, little washer things that I told you about. And on the non-drive side, you want to take the one that looks a little bit like a quarter pipe that has the more smooth down edge and stick that on to one side of the axle. You're going to want to take the other side, the other washer, and the indentation, so the little part that goes in, is going to be on the drive side towards the chain. And then, after that, we're going to stick all the washers in there. I need 3 washers, so that the chain will line nice and straight with the crank spindle. So you take the washers, stick them right on top of there. And for you, your bike might be a little bit different. It might need a different amount of washers. That's okay. Finally, since those two things are on, we are going to take the crank arms. Now, you want to start with the non-drive side, so the crank arm without the sprocket on it. And it doesn't matter if you put up, down, left, right, but you just want to slide it on to the spindle. And you can just let it hang right there. And you're going to want to take the little bolt that was on the other side, and I know you can't see it, but I'll show you the other side in a second. And you just want to screw it on until it's nice and tight onto the bike. And doing this, you're going to want to take maybe a 13 or 16 Allen key, Most of these cranksets come with an Allen key, but if you don't, just go grab one. They're super cheap. And tighten it on, not so much that you're going to strip the bolt, but tight enough so that you feel secure and it won't come off, and that there's no moving in the crank arm. Finally, there's a little bolt with the same size Allen key that you use to screw on this part with the spindle, and you're going to want to tighten that down. And what that does is it keeps it on the crank arm so it's nice and tight on there. So you take the same Allen key and you start screwing that on. Do the same thing with the other one, and then make it not so tight that it strips it, but tight enough that everything is stuck right on there. So this side, we're going to actually take the sprocket, which is the part that goes around the chain. Most sprockets are about a 25 or 24 T. In the T, these are the little teeth right here that go around the chain. And in my pocket, I have the screw that goes on through the little ring in the sprocket. And the crank arms, they should both have one, is this little piece right here that you stick the bolt through on the sprocket and then screw it on so everything is nice and sturdy. You can let it dangle there for a little bit until you've got it nice and tight. Don't make it too tight so you can't slide it onto the spindle, but tighten it enough so it's right nice on there, and then you'll be all good to go. So match it up with the hole so you can slide it right onto the crank arm. And this is the most important part. You don't want to slide the crank arm on so it's not completely uneven with the other one. You want to make it completely even as much as you can. And you can't, then just try and do that. So once you do that, you're going to redo the exact same operation that you did with this side on the exact other side. And you take the bolt, you just screw it on, screw it on, screw it on, screw it on. And what this does is it, like I said before, it just completely keeps everything right in place. And so after that's complete, you want to take the other one, the other bolt right here, do the exact same side. And the sprocket might be in the way. That's okay. And here you go. You have all the crank arms and the crank spindle and everything assembled. So there you go. After that, you're going to want to take the chain and put it on there. If you don't have a chain breaker, it's going to be really, really, really hard to do. And what a chain breaker does is it breaks open the chain, pushes a little pin through, and then you can take the chain apart so you don't have to bring it down to the bike shop and all that. They're really cheap. Just go buy one. So then you can break it apart, put the chain around, and you're good to go. So